I want to talk to you today about something that is on the lips of many entrepreneurs, many leaders of the world, and it's the word globalism. Globalism. Something that seems to be in common parlance today, yet I think not many people really think about what that word means. It can mean a lot of things, and in some definition is good, and some is really unbiblical, unscriptural. So I've dealt with this before when Britain was going through the Brexit vote. But I want to bring it up again because I think it applies more and more to the vision that God has been giving to us. So let's go back to the beginning of the founding of the United States of America. I grew up in the States for at least 10 years. I also went to Bible school in the United States, so I feel pretty confident to be able to speak to you about the beginning of the United States. What was the Founding Fathers' view of globalism? These men were Christian, they were educated, they were some of the best people to found the greatest nation on earth, as Americans like to say. So what did they think? Let's take an interest in what they said. Maybe you have gone to school, studied political history, studied American history, and yet have never heard firsthand their own words. So here it is. Let's start with, who is this in the picture? Thank you very much. Thomas Jefferson, quote, "I have ever deemed it fundamental for the United States never to take active part in the quarrels of Europe." Would have been good if somebody listened to him. Their political interests are entirely distinct from ours. Their complicated alliances, their forms of government are all foreign to us. They are nations of eternal war. This was said by the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, in 1823. Would it have saved millions of lives if anybody had listened to him prior to World War I, started by Europe? Prior to World War II, started by Europe. Looking back, it can be said that Jefferson prophesied the origin, the certainty of a world war initiated by European interests. And it happened in World War I. We thought, they called it the war to end all wars. The hubris, the arrogance of people. No one is going to end all war except Jesus Christ. But they thought, enough blood spilled. Now we're going to be so kind and so good to each other. So what did they do? Didn't take, within 2 decades, they were at it again. And it was even worse the second time. And so they thought, again, they're never going to have war again because of the formation of the United Nations. But if you listen to Thomas Jefferson, he foretold avoid any political alliances and treaties with European powers. They lead others into war. He said that. Now today, people either don't know what he said or dismiss what he said and think, well, they don't know, like we know today. We are somehow better than our forefathers. Were the American founding fathers close-minded isolationists? Is that how you would interpret this? Well, keep listening to what they said. Who is this? Thank you. The first president, George Washington. Easy to recognize. He's on the $1 bill. Quote, "The great rule of conduct in regards to foreign nations is, in extending our commercial relations, to have with them as little political connection as possible." What does that mean? Every Chinese person listening should know. That means you can make money with them, you can trade with them, but stay away from their wars. Stay away from their political manipulation. So were they isolationists? Not at all. They were saying free trade, open trade, awesome, but not global governance. Because they fled from that. They fled from that European dream to always try to unite everybody, and they always go into bloody war over this fictitious Pax Romana. They have this dream, this illusion that there was once this great empire, that there was really great peace. And they were sick, and they were dying of diseases that we've already cured today. And they had barbaric, we have words, draconian law. When laws are so tyrannical, we say draconian. Well, there's your Pax Romana bubble bursted. All right? And on and on. They did some great things, but they continually try to unite people together by force and control. Because these people think that they can rule everybody else, and Jesus says you can't. You can't rule everybody. You have to give people freedom, and those who choose will come and follow me. So George Washington once again said, trade with them, have commercial relations with them, but as little political connection as possible. Who is this? Thomas Paine said in 1776, not a place on earth might be so happy as America. Her situation is remote from all the wrangling world, and she has nothing to do but to trade with them. So was he an isolationist? Not at all. He said trade is fine, commerce is fine, the flow of goods and services is fine, but don't get in there wrangling. So were the founding fathers globalists? The answer is yes and no. Did they believe in free trade? Yes. Did they believe in the free exchange of ideas? Yes. Did they believe in open borders? No. Did they believe in uniting in political alliances to create some global super government? Absolutely not. They fled from that to create the United States of America. In fact, they so believed in limited government that they wouldn't even themselves take the power. They called it the United States of America, meaning each individual state was its own sovereign nation. That was the original design of America. That's the intention of the Constitution, is anything that was given to the federal government, that was empowered to the federal government, belongs at federal level. Anything not mentioned gets decided by the states. So a lot of these additional laws and rules that get added federally is actually not constitutional, and it's not really in line with the founding fathers' desire. Now, if you look at the globalist leaders of today, you will see that they don't seem to understand the basic lessons, the basic wisdom that the American founding fathers tried to warn us about. So you've got here Theresa May, the globalist leader of the UK. You've got Justin Trudeau shedding a tear because he was a former substitute drama teacher, so he can shed a tear anytime on command. And you've got Emmanuel Macron, who interestingly is not only just, physically similar looking and similar age as Justin Trudeau, but he also married his former drama teacher. So it seems like if you're very good at drama and you're young, then the globalists handpick you. Because everybody loves a good drama queen. Is that right? What do they say? Do they sound anything like Thomas Jefferson or George Washington? Golly, not at all. They're just the opposite. You will hear them constantly say these empty words, empty rhetoric. We must stand together. Okay, right after somebody dies, their own citizens get slaughtered because of their own failed political policies, rather than saying, it's our fault. We screwed up. No, we're just going to keep going the same way, and we're going to preach to people mindless, meaningless words. We will stand together. Whoa, everybody applauds for that. It's like a movie. It's like watching a surreal fiction. We must stand together. People die. People get their heads chopped off. People get stabbed, run over by trucks. What shall we do? And what's the response? Let's unite. What else should we do? Well, whatever we do, we will do it for the common good. Translation, we'll do it for votes. We will never step on the group of people whose votes we are depending on. And why won't they ever fix the illegal migrant, the terrorist migrant issue? Because it's considered an easy voting bloc. Why would you step on your own voters? You see how politicians think? It takes a special kind of person to be a politician. They're not ordinary. They're not like you. They're better than you. They don't think in terms of money. They think in terms of votes. Because votes are bigger than money. So, how new is this? They consider this very progressive. But this is not progressive at all. Anyone who knows European history and Middle Eastern history knows that this is a 3,000-year-old European Babylonian agenda. This talk of let's stand together, unite together for the common good has been the singular goal of the Middle Eastern empires and the European empires for at least 3,000 years. And every time they try, people die. And every time they think they succeed, they fail. And the young generation think this is something new. It's so old. It's not original. It's not progressive. You want to be progressive, you want to be revolutionary these days, you have to be a Christian. You have to stand up for Jesus. That's now politically incorrect. But this is very old, and look, I don't know other parts of the world that's interested in achieving this goal. I don't think Africans have gone around slaughtering everybody. They have their own sins and problems, but they haven't gone out trying to conquer the rest of the planet, have they? Asians don't have this goal. Asians don't go and slaughter everybody so that they can conquer Europe. Or, the Huns did for a little bit. They went all the way to Eastern Europe, okay? But most Asians haven't done that. So you got Japan tried to conquer Asia, but not world domination. I think at least Japan would know the most that they could get to was down to Singapore. They even tried Australia, but that didn't work at all. God reserved Australia for Christianity, for Christ, not for Shintoism. Welcome to come here, but this is a Christian nation. Our flag has crosses on it. The Southern Cross, the Union Jack, is a combination of 3 crosses. We are a Christian nation. Welcome to Australia. A free, a good country because of Christ. So this vision of global government means really not much more than global taxation. So they've taxed their citizens out. Their citizens have no more to give. They're now in debt. They've outspent the amount of productivity of their own citizens. So what do? As Europeans and as Middle Easterners, they're looking to tax us. They're looking to rope us in to bring more income into their system. This is a wicked thing. This is not for the common good at all. You should limit your spending. You should watch how you charge your credit card, right? If you charge your credit card and you don't pay and you keep charging, eventually you owe a debt you can't pay, they throw you in jail. Right? If you refuse to pay, you get punished. But the politicians never get punished. They do wrong and then they want to punish us. And this is one of the main agendas of globalism. So, spare me your tear, Justin Trudeau. Daniel chapter 2 already prophesied about people like you. You are just falling straight in line with Bible prophecy. Daniel chapter 2, verse 43. Daniel said, 2,500 years ago, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, this dream gets interpreted. Each of these elements represent an empire. The iron is clearly Europe. At that time would have been the Roman Empire. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. The eternal, ceaseless, bloody dream of Europe to bring everybody together and unite under their power, under their way, under more taxation, is a dream that even before it happened, Daniel saw and said, you're going to try to do it all the way to the end. but it won't work. Like iron won't mix with clay. You're not going to cleave together. You're never going to be united. You're never going to get the whole world united under your power, because only one person is capable of doing that, and his name is Jesus. And God is not looking for a substitute of Jesus. And you're not ever going to be the replacement of Jesus. And anyone who has that dream of taking the role, the royal position of Jesus, is a megalomaniac. Something is wrong. You're missing something if you think that way. You say, well, I don't believe Daniel chapter 2. I don't believe the Bible. Believe it. It's already happened. 1 year ago, Britain left the European Union. And the lying media, the same lying media that said Trump could never win, said Brexit could never happen. Well, believe it. It's already happened. Why? Because I checked my Bible and it said it will happen. The evil people will constantly try to bring more force and control over the population, and the population will wise up and resist, and it will break up. Remember, globalism means force. Nationalism means freedom. The way that we understand it, from a biblical point of view, God created nations. God wants nations, so that no one nation will become so evil that they try to control another nation. There's always going to be a check and a balance. In history, good nations can turn bad. In history, bad nations can turn good. So we have many, many nations. We have more safety. We have insurance. We're not all going to be deceived and controlled by the same megalomaniac. Make sense? So now we must talk about the potential for a new level and new method of bringing this globalist dream that they think is so new and progressive, but anyone who studies history knows is as old as Babylon. And that's why Babylon features so prominently in the book of Revelation. We must now come to a young man named Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook. He is a young globalist by his own admission, and his words are plain to see because even though he was quiet for a while, he's now stepped up. And many people want him to run for president. So then, since you're going to be so public, we must then assess what's in your mind, what's in your agenda. And he went to his, you can't call it alma mater because he dropped out of Harvard, but he was invited to give a commencement speech at Harvard on the 28th of May, 2017. And so let me read to you what he says. These are his own words. And tell me if it sounds eerily like what George Washington and Thomas Jefferson dreaded and warned us, be careful about this grand vision that tyrants will try to sell you because it will steal your freedom and your children's lives. So quote, "It's time for our generation defining public works." What? Well, that word right there, that means common good. Not private, not what is good for you, the individual, but what's good for the public. Well, who defines that? Well, Mark Zuckerberg obviously thinks he can define that. It's time. Justin Trudeau often says that, by the way. When they ask him why he does something, he says, it's the current year. How about stopping climate change before we destroy the planet? And the crowd goes wild. The young students with no experience love this. They eat this up. Okay, so you think that if you increase taxes, you will change the weather. Is that science or is that just fiction? That's make-believe, isn't it? That's just glorified taxation. You're not going to change the weather. The things that control this planet are way bigger than us. And the temperature of the planet has gone up and down in ranges far exceeding the ranges that they've been measuring since the 60s. And the world has survived. And if the world had more carbon dioxide and the world was warmer, it'd be fantastic for plants. Plants would love it. Anyway, I've covered that in The Truth About Climate Change. It's the greatest scientific fraud of all time. Quote, in a survey asking millennials around the world what defines our identity, it was citizen of the world. And the crowd goes wild. I can speak like this. If I want nothing but popularity and money, I just talk like this. Everybody would clap. But it'd be a lie. My conscience doesn't allow me to do it because I've been called to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and the truth of prophecy. This has already been predicted, that the world would be deceived globally. We understand that the great arc of human history, I don't even know what that means, do you? The great arc of human history bends towards people coming together in ever greater numbers, from tribes to cities to nations, to achieve things we couldn't on our own. Can you hear the equivocation? He's mixing up economic coming together, which is voluntary, with political coming together, which is by law and by force. But the Harvard students don't get taught about freedom and libertarianism anymore. They don't even know what George Washington and Thomas Jefferson said. Nobody questions this. This is called deception. We can be the generation that ends poverty, that ends disease. When have I heard that before? When we got vaccine, when we discovered the microscopic bacteria, when we discovered penicillin. Every time they say we're going to defeat disease, then new diseases come. Uh-oh, it's worse than before. And then our antibiotics don't work, and then we create more strains of virus and bacteria that are even more resilient and more deadly. You ain't going to fix all the diseases in the world. You ain't going to fix poverty. Jesus said, the poor you'll always have with you. The people who are doing the most for poor people are Christians and free trade, which happens the most in a Christian environment. Right? You need people to be moral and good so that you can have free trade. If people lie and cheat and steal, you can't have free trade. So what's free trade predicated upon? Christian values. But they're not taught this. He benefits from living in the most Christian nation on earth, living in the most free market nation on earth, and he's going to attack the hand that feeds him. When parents work hard and give everything to kids who grow up in the second generation and have no idea how the wealth was created, have no idea can't count the sacrifices of the grandparents and the parents. And then they attack the very things that gave them their comforts and their prosperity. This is what he's going to do. He's going to solve all this because nobody else has ever tried before him. They're all dummies before. Progress. Got to throw that word in because young people like progressive. Progress now requires coming together. It's almost like a movie script. Like every speech, they have to say these words. Progress now requires coming together, not just as cities or nations, but also as a global community. I think this could be like a Hollywood scene, like in the Hunger Games. Almost looks and sounds the same, yeah? Really. How are you going to make people with different opinions come together in a global community? You'd have to brainwash them, indoctrinate them, strip their freedom away from them. Because if you give freedom to people, not everybody wants to come together with you, Mark Zuckerberg. You assume I want to come together with you. I might like living here in Australia. We're fine, thank you. Right? She'll be right, mate. But, despondent time. Despondent, Mark Zuckerberg says, we live in an unstable time. Really? There's pressure to turn inwards. So he's going to define who the enemy is. Everything is just a setup. You understand? You get the crowd to go rah, rah, rah because you said, let's work together, let's unite, let's come together. Just throw those words out and they just lap it all up. Now, here's the real punchline. There's an enemy that we must face. We must control them. We must stop them. Who are these people? Get the mirror out, because it's you. You, freedom-loving people. You, Christians who dare think differently than the global agenda. So who's our enemy, Mr. CEO? Please inform us. We should explore ideas like universal basic income to give everyone a cushion to try new things. Well, this is straight economic communism. We're going to control the wages of people. So what if somebody works hard and another person works not at all? Well, we will decide and set the wage. How well did that work in Russia? How well did that work in China? We've been there before that. Been there, done that. But every generation never fails to repeat the same mistakes and think they're original. Maybe he should have finished Harvard University. But honestly, Harvard doesn't even teach it. I went to Harvard. I took some classes at Harvard. I don't think they teach it. Some good classes there. We're going to change jobs many times, so we need affordable childcare to get to work. All right, so freebies, free money. You're going to take money from me forcibly and redistribute it to others to support choices they make. How many children will you have? How long will you take off work so that you can take care of your children? Those are your choices. Isn't that right? But you're going to force me to support your decision. How's that going to work? Only by accumulating power to yourself. And the politicians always think they're good enough to be able to amass that kind of power and use it without abusing it, but they always abuse it. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me take you back to the book of Genesis, and I'll just read this in closing. This is the Tower of Babel. This is the most famous, I guess it's the first and the most famous instance of globalism. A bad dude named Nimrod decided that he can bring everyone together under his political thumb. And the symbol of that was to build a great tower. And you see this over and over. Whenever people become prosperous, they always want to build the biggest tower. The spirit of Antichrist, the spirit of globalism never fails. And where's the biggest tower now? It has actually gone back to the same location. Do you realize that? In the Middle East, the Al Burj Tower. Hey, that's Babylon. People say they don't believe the Bible. Nothing is new under the sun. The first tower they tried to build, dedicated to astrology. It's not that they were going to climb up all the way to the clouds. What are they going to do up there? It was a tower unto heaven. It means a tower dedicated unto the moon god, a moon goddess. So today you see buildings all over the Middle East that still, at the top of the spires, little crescent moon. It's the same guys. And they were rebelling against God's authority, and they're saying, we are going to amass the authority, and we're going to control the humans. I dealt with this topic of globalism for a full hour. It would be well worth anyone revisiting that teaching, getting that teaching, because these forces have not stopped. Even though Brexit was a temporary halt to the globalist agenda in Britain, the force has not stopped. They're going to come at us another way and another way. And it's going to finally succeed when Christians are gone. Either they kill all of us or we get raptured. At some point, this will succeed. Their idea of globalism will go for about 7 years. And it will create such disaster, such murder, such persecution, such war. And we'll be gone. Nobody to stop them. So that's why we preach it now. What really happened back then? Listen to the words of Genesis 10. We're only 10 chapters into the first book of the Bible, and it predicted the end. Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter. What does that mean? He's a killer. He's a soldier. He's a warrior. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Erech, Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. This is now Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Now the whole world had one language and one speech. This is the amazing thing, is they were actually united already. People strive for things that God has freely given to them and muck it up. Remember, Adam and Eve did that. Said, you'll be like God. Well, you were created in the image and likeness of God. You should have enjoyed it. Instead, you followed Satan's plan. And they said, come, let us unite together for the common good. Let us stand together because now it is the time. History will not be kind to people who won't build the Tower of Babel. I bet you they talk like that, huh? They said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is... Now this translation says in the heavens. In the King James, there's no preposition. That's actually added the word in or unto. So whose top? The heavens. What does that mean? It actually is better, but should have been translated, whose top is dedicated to the moon goddess in the heavens, the stars in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves. You see, their plan was wrong and their purpose was wrong. You should read a book called Plans, Purposes, and Pursuits. A lot of people make plans and purposes that are wrong. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And of course, God then confused the languages, and that's how we get the Chinese nations and the Scandinavians and the Africans and the Arabic, okay? So that's where languages came from. To this day, with all the linguistic studies, I took some university-level linguistics class, they can't figure out where languages came from. I mean, not only do we have such complex languages, which are being simplified. So it started off complex. It's the opposite of evolution. It started off like Sanskrit, Pali, Greek, classical Latin, extremely complex in grammar and structure, more than ours. And it's been dumbing down ever since. And there are at least 3 different types of languages that are completely unrelated to each other. It's the opposite of evolution. It's exactly what the Bible says. Is like that. God says, no, you won't.